All right, you ready, guys? So let's do this. Let's go down the list that's on page 328. Okay, so we'll go down that list together, and that way we'll make sure that I got everything that you need to know. Okay, so the first thing is the curvatures. Okay, so the first thing with the curvatures, we have to have the guy go in the right direction. Okay, so he was going this way earlier. So if we have the model go in the right direction, you can see the normal curves of the spine. Okay, so usually there's a little bit of a curve in the cervical area. Okay, then thoracic area has a bigger curve. Okay, then lumbar goes the opposite direction, and then the sacrum goes this way. Okay, so it's like opposite. Every region is opposite. Okay, so that's not that big of a deal. Okay, that's easy to do. And then if you look, there's a picture in the book about different disorders that have to do with the curvatures. So there's scoliosis in there, because people asked about that on Monday. So if you look at this, okay, so if you look at scoliosis, you can see instead of the curve being to this, it's the curve is going to the side. So you get the S this way. Okay. Does that make sense? And then lordosis is like a sway back, or whatever, the lower part of the back. And then kyphosis is at the top. So this is what you see in osteoporosis when little old ladies are shrinking or men are shrinking. It's this. Okay, now we have some vertebrae that show, like some models that we got from drug companies. From drug companies, and they show like the compressed vertebrae that are a result of osteoporosis. So you can look at these, and it has stuff in it. It's kind of cool to look at. And like the different fractures and everything that are in there. So it's kind of cool. I mean, it's not cool, but it's cool to see how it works. And then this one has one too. So you can see how it starts to curve when these guys become compressed. Or if someone has a fracture or something, an injury. Okay, so let's go through. Okay, now the next thing on the list, what's the next thing on the list? Oh, counting the vertebrae. I guess I didn't need to turn this on. The numbering of the vertebrae, right? So if we count them, okay, so the cervical area, there's actually how many vertebrae? How many bones? 7. Okay, how many nerves do we have though? 8. Okay, so 7 bones. Okay, then thoracic, how many do we have? 12. How many nerves? 12. Okay, lumbar? 5. 5. Okay, and then sacrum? 5. But it's fused, right? So it just looks like one bone. And then how many nerves? 5. Okay, and then the coccyx, there's just like 1. So we can go through these and we can count them. Count the vertebrae. So if we start here, okay, so C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the sacrum, and then the coccyx. Okay, so the coccyx is your tailbone. You guys know that, right? Okay, now C1 is the atlas. Okay, so C1 is the atlas. Okay, C2 is the axis. Okay, so C1 is the first vertebrae. I always think they call it Atlas because Atlas was the Greek character, or Greek person, or whatever that he wasn't God, was he? He was probably just.
He was one of the Titans.
Oh, he was a Titan. I don't know.
He held the earth.
Yeah, he held the earth, right, on his shoulders. So if he's holding the earth is your head, right, and he's holding it on your shoulders. So that's Atlas. And then underneath of that is axis. Now let me show you what the atlas and the axis look like up here. Okay, so the atlas and the axis are different because they don't have a body. They're vertebrae without a body. So if you look at like a thoracic vertebrae or another cervical vertebrae, they have a body. Okay, and the body's, this is the body. Okay. The first two vertebrae don't have a body. Okay, so they're bodiless. So C1 is this one. Okay, and then this is C2. This is the axis. Now the axis has this little thing, a process that sticks up on it, and that's called the dens. Okay, so that's DENS. So that's on the axis. So that's how they articulate. How they come together is this is going to sit on here like this. And that's like, can you see it? Or is that better? Okay. So that sits on it like that. Okay, now, so that's the atlas, that's the axis. Okay, now what's going to articulate with the atlas? What part of the skull? The occipital condyles, right? Did you get that right on the quiz? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, that was the question on the quiz. Yep. Okay, now, if you look at, let's go down through the list. Okay, so if you look at a vertebrae, or vertebra, okay, so if you look at the vertebra, this is the body. The only reason these have a hole in them is so they sit on that stick. Okay, your vertebra don't have a hole in them. Okay, you don't have a hole. Okay, now this hole here, this is called the vertebral foramen. Okay, so that's where the spinal cord is going to go down through. Okay, so that's vertebral foramen. The vertebral arch is just this arch right here, this area. Okay, that's the vertebral arch. The spine is this part right here. Okay, so the spine should always be pointing down. It's oriented right if it's pointing down. Okay, so this one to me looks like a giraffe. Okay, does it look like, do you see the giraffe? Okay, it doesn't look, you can't see the, I don't know how to make it better so that you could see you can't see the contours. I wonder if alright. So this is the spine, so the nose is the spine. Okay, these little ears coming off the sides, those are the transverse processes. Okay, so transverse processes, that makes sense, right? They're going out to the side. Okay, those processes going up, the little horns, those are the superior articular processes. And on the surface of those are where the facets are. So facets, just like a facet on a gemstone, like if you had a diamond and it was cut, right? The smooth part of it, that's the facet. So these guys, those are the facets. That's the smooth part on there. So that's going to articulate with the bottom of the other one. So that articulates with the inferior process of this one. So they come together like that. Does that make sense? So superior are his little horns. And then the smooth part is the facet on there. Okay, then his little jowls down here, like his little cheeks. Okay, that's the inferior process with the facets on there. Okay, and the inferior and the superior, that's where it comes together. Does that make sense? Is that easier? Is that better, Angel?
And in our bodies, it's just fiber cartilage between that.
Yes, there's going to be fibrocartilage discs in between them. So those are the intervertebral discs. So like if someone has a herniated disc or something like that, right, well, these guys don't fit. So it's like right in between there like that. So that, herniated would mean it's not in a position that it's, like part of it is bulging out. So see this little gummy bear thing that's sticking off of here? That's supposed to be your herniated disc. Okay. The same thing as like a slip disc? A slip disc would mean it's slid. It's not in the right position. So it might be off center. It's not where it's supposed to be. So what's the other one? There's a herniated disc. Bulging. Bulging would kind of be probably like herniated, but maybe it happens differently. A bulging disc. It's like if it's herniated, a It's not in the right place where it's supposed to be. It's kind of been pushed out of whack. So is bulging and herniated the same?
I was thinking it might be when the herniated is when some of the intervertebral fluid leaks out of it.
Into it, maybe.
Yeah.
And
And
that
the
pushes it
bulging is just when it's kind of slip
out.
like a slip disc. Yeah.
Slip disc. Okay. Because you see that probably. Do you feel them in those backs when you do? Probably not. It's on the
not
other
really.
side.
I mean, you can kind of feel if it's like the disc itself isn't, or the vertebrae isn't in the right place, but not the intervertebral disc.
Right. Okay, so everybody kind of okay?
Yeah, I was just looking at the herniated disc online.
Yeah, what does it say?
It says, it is when the cushion is pushed out of place between the spinal vertebrae and the pain is caused due to the nerves.
Yeah, okay, so
The nerves would be a problem.
that's what we need to talk about is what happens. So the discs are creating that space for the nerves to come out. So if the intervertebral discs are not where they're supposed to be, it can compress these spinal nerves. Okay? Yeah, there's nerves, and then there's stenosis, spinal stenosis, and that's when the canal, the foramen, starts to narrow, and that'll put pressure on it too. So a pinched nerve. A pinched nerve could be, it's pinched between something. It could be pinched between, if it's a spinal nerve, it's hard to pinched between some vertebrae. But there's pinched nerves other places too. So like if it was in your vertebrae, that means like in this, something's like happening. It could be that or something's wrong with the vertebrae that they're out of. Yeah. Okay, I want to get Is everybody okay? Okay, now this is what okay, so when we look at this one, this is what we're considering the vertebral column. Okay, so this is the column of them. So we have these wired together so you can kind of see how they go. So this is the back, right? So think about your back of your spine. So if you run your hands down your back, what you're feeling, okay, the bumps that you're feeling are these, right? The spines of your vertebrae. So they should be pointing down. Okay, so that's what you're feeling. Now, let's go back a second. C7 is, if you go, okay, see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is the bump at the back of your neck. Okay, that's the bump. That's the spine of C7, and that's called the prominence. Okay, so C7 has a longer spine. Prominence, is that on your list somewhere? Yeah. Yeah. And you said it's longer spine. It's got the longest spine. Or the longest